This is African American History is American History. Of course, everyone who took American history in school knows the first person killed in the Boston Massacre, which led to the American Revolution, was Crispus Attucks. But that's most likely all they know. Most people don't know just how he died, or what he did for a living, or that he was of mixed heritage, African American and Native American, specifically Wampanoag. In fact, as celebrated as he was for being the first martyr in the fight for American independence nearly 253 years ago, very little is known about the man. And what is known isn't in the school textbooks. Crispus Attucks was born roughly around 1723 in the town of Framingham, Massachusetts, though some historians place his birth in the town of Natick. Crispus Attucks' father, a slave who had been known for his skill in buying and selling cattle, was said to be an African, and his mother was a Natick or Nantucket Indian. In colonial America, the offspring of black and Indian parents were considered either black or mulatto. And it's important to note that during Crispus Attucks' time, the term mulatto was often used to describe skin tone rather than ethnicity, and sometimes referred to full-blooded Native Americans. It's widely acknowledged that Attucks had considerable Native American heritage. However, there are some historians who disagree that Crispus Attucks had any African heritage. Somewhere around the age of 26 or 27, Crispus Attucks was the property of Deacon William Brown. We know this because in 1750, Brown placed an ad for the return of a runaway slave named Crispus, spelled Crispas, rather than how the name has been spelled today, Crispus. Brown described him as, quote, 6 feet 2 inches high, short curly hair, his knees nearer together than common, end quote. Though it's not known if Deacon William Brown was his original owner. In the ad, Brown describes Crispus, what he was wearing, and where he was last seen. Brown also offered a reward of £10 for his safe return. Now that's roughly $546.72 in today's American dollars. Though he is commonly described throughout history as an African American, two major sources of eyewitness testimony about the massacre, both published in 1770, did not refer to Crispus Attucks as black, nor as Negro, but rather as a mulatto and an Indian. In an account from Philadelphia's Pennsylvania Gazette, a man who may have been Attucks was referred to as a, quote, mulatto man named Crispus, who was born in Framingham but lately belonged to New Providence and was here in order to go for North Carolina, end quote. Crispus Attucks held many jobs. He was a sailor working on a whaling crew out of Boston Harbor. He also worked as a rope maker in Boston. As British control over the colonies tightened, tensions escalated between the colonists and British soldiers. Crispus Attucks was one of those directly affected by this worsening situation. Seamen of color like Attucks constantly lived with the threat that at any time they could be forced into the British Navy. Meanwhile, back on land, British soldiers regularly took part-time work away from the colonists, especially low-level jobs like rope makers. On March 2nd, 1770, a fight erupted between a group of Boston rope makers and 3 British soldiers. The conflict was ratcheted up 3 nights later when a British soldier looking for work entered a Boston pub, only to be greeted by furious sailors, one of whom was Crispus Attucks. Details regarding what followed are a bit sketchy, but that evening a group of Bostonians approached a guard in front of the customs house and started taunting him. The situation quickly escalated when a contingent of British redcoats came to the defense of their fellow soldier. More angry Bostonians joined the brawl. Unfortunately, Crispus Attucks was one of 5 men who were at the front of this huge free-for-all when the British opened fire. Crispus Attucks was the first of 5 men killed as 2 ricocheted bullets hit him square in the chest. Despite laws and customs regulating the burial of blacks, Crispus Attucks was buried in the all-white Park Street Cemetery, along with the other honored dead. The citizens of Boston observed the anniversary of the Boston Massacre in each of the following years leading up to the Revolutionary War. A Crispus Attucks Day was inaugurated by black abolitionists in 1858, and in 1888, the Crispus Attucks Monument was erected on the Boston Common, despite the opposition of the Massachusetts Historical Society and the New England Historic Genealogical Society, which simply regarded Attucks as part of an unruly mob that forced an unfortunate situation. Nevertheless, Crispus Attucks became immortalized as, quote, the first to defy, the first to die, end quote, and is, to this very day, considered America's first true martyr. Quote, the first to pour out his blood as a precious libation on the altar of a people's rights, end quote.
He was found strung up in a jackknife position in a shallow ravine. A 1/4-inch noose, tethered to a sapling on the earthen bank above him, dug into the flesh of his neck. His feet, bound with baling wire, were attached by a second rope to 3 other saplings, and his hands were tied behind him. Stars and Stripes, September 2nd, 2016.
That was the description of Private Felix Hall, a 19-year-old black man from Alabama who had volunteered just a few months after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. In the early morning of March 28, 1941, the body of Private Hall was found. He was lynched on the segregated military base of Fort Benning, Georgia. Hall was born on New Year's Day, 1922, in Millbrook, Alabama, a rural town 11 miles north of Montgomery. His mother died of tuberculosis a week before his 3rd birthday. His father moved to Montgomery to find work, leaving Hall and his 2 brothers to be raised by their grandmother. Hall's family and friends nicknamed him Poss. When he was a teenager, Hall watched his older cousins enlist in the military and leave town to train for war. The only work available to black teenagers in Millbrook at that time was picking cotton. Hall was 18 years old, 5'8", and 130 pounds when he went to the recruiting station in Montgomery in August of 1940 to enlist in the Army. He was assigned to Fort Benning in neighboring Georgia, where he would join the 24th Infantry Regiment, one of the first all-black military units. The 24th was active from 1869 to 1951, and again from 1995 to the present. Private Felix Hall was last seen alive on February 12, 1941, in one of Fort Benning's white neighborhoods. His body was found 6 weeks later on March 28th, hanging by a noose tied to a tree in a ravine near the Chattahoochee River. His was the only known murder of its kind on a U.S. military base.